Down OGP bonus Sunday playoff edition. Yes, my friends, it's OGP, the One Giant Podcast. You know, I am one of those hosts and Adam Armbrecht. But look, that's not Andrew Makowitz on the other side. Big Dash knows we'll dispense with the pleasantries around our show and the nonsense that we say at the top. How are you, man? We were talking before we started. We know this is lump in the throat until this ball gets kicked off today.
Yeah, man. Like I said, the anxiety is at an all-time high. 6 years waiting for this, and I wanted to keep going. That's where the anxiety comes from, not actually from the game or the opponent. It's just the whole thing being in the playoffs.
Dude, it's the anticipation, right? Like it's
Yeah,
just wanting to see it get underway. I think, and I don't know about you, because I want to talk about you were recently doing on your channel, talking about the offensive line play, right? The trenches, and we all know how critical that's going to be. And there is a little bit of a different kind of feel relative to what we've talked about all season with the Giants. Now all of a sudden we look at the Vikings and go, well, maybe they're the weakness when it comes to that matchup.
right.
But the one thing that I just don't think I'm going to be able to stand, it's like I need this game to kick off. I need it to feel like the Giants are toe to toe in this thing. And you and I were talking a little bit about the game last night, the Chargers and the Jaguars. It's like, man, I don't care if it could go the best direction by the end of it. I can't have a start of a game like that. I
Yeah,
can't. I cannot
yeah,
have a Trevor Lawrence
absolutely
type
not.
of energy in the first quarter of this game. It might give me a heart attack.
I think that's the one thing we probably don't have to worry about because if Daniel Jones won't take the chances to throw that many interceptions, first
Yes.
of all, and I think that I noticed like they got away from the running game early and they didn't have to. And right now with us, Saquon Barkley, the way this offensive line is coming along, Evan Neal's still struggling a little bit though, but Brett isn't back.
Mhm.
We have to control the clock. That's the main thing about this game for me.
Let's start there because you see the game against the Colts. We know the Eagles game, it's the backups, and there's even still some great things we were able to take away, I think, as a team from that game. But when you
Mhm.
come into this one, you said it, stick to it. Do you look at this as being let's control the game clock? Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, pick your spots, use your legs. We know what he's capable of. You think that that's the better approach as opposed to maybe buying into that Jaguars thing of let's try to be potent early, and it obviously dramatically increases the risk factor.
You know what? Well, here's the thing. I think anything can happen as far as that goes. It's all about Mike Kafka and
Yep.
what he thinks the plan is going to be. When we played him the first time, I was surprised that we went out in like four receiver sets and stuff like that. Even though they were, we knew that the passing defense, was ranked pretty low, but just to go ahead and attack that and be fine with it, kind of surprised me. But to me, it's playoff time. You do what got you there, and I think that stick with running the ball. But if it's not, if we're having troubles or we're struggling, you know, open up that intermediate game.
Yeah, that's my one my one reservation, not hesitation. Saquon Barkley's had a great year. We know that. But it's like you go back and you look at a lot of these first half of games where it's 10 carries, 11, 12, 13 carries for 40 yards, and you're waiting
Yeah,
for the home run hits. And when they hit, it's beautiful, right? When he breaks off the 45-yard touchdown run up the gut, it's great. But everything leading up to that, my concern is, especially against the Vikings, is what are you risking potentially if you hang in there with it? Now, to your point, like I think Kafka's done a nice job given the weapons he has, what the limitations are to say, hey, I can make these little tweaks. Like all year long, we talk so much about Wink Martindale and how
yeah,
he's adjusted in game. I think
yeah,
Kafka has done that as well. It's just there's only so much room to wiggle
yeah,
with when you think about the adjustments you can make. That's just my one fear, man. My one fear is
yeah,
like finding yourself down 14-0. And I don't even, it's so weird, man, because I'm not even, I have confidence that if you were down 14-0, Daniel Jones can lead you down
it's
the
weird,
field,
right?
one of those
It's weird.
sustained drives. That's the weird part. Like, I
Yeah,
don't lack for confidence in their ability to do it. I just don't want to see it. I just don't want to look up
you
and see a 2-score deficit you have to overcome.
yeah, no, especially not in the playoffs. Not in
Yeah.
the playoffs. Because like I said, it's a different kind of game then. But I agree with you. Like I said, do what got us here is one thing. But I do like the game plan, or I did like the game plan that they went to. And the first time we played them again, it was successful. We got a little bit greedy, and then Patrick Peterson was able to pick that pass off. But my deal is that if you want to play that kind of game, that's fine. But we also need to get Saquon involved. If Saquon can have a game where he's close to 100 yards and a touchdown, that's pretty much telling us that the Giants are going to win this game.
Yeah,
Because
you know what, too? When you go back to that Minnesota game, especially, because this is one of the ones where over the course of the season, I thought at least, and like Andy and I talked about this a lot, of man, I really would have thought that Saquon in the passing game, getting back to the rookie year style, it just seemed like such an obvious thing to do when it came to Kafka in the offense. But then you see the limitations, who you're dealing with wide receiver wise. Kenny Galladay becomes a non-factor. Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson. It obviously changes in a hurry. But you go back and you look at that first meeting with the Vikings, man, you can't help but love going inside the box score and seeing. We know we had the 27-yard run for Barkley, but 84 yards on 14 carries. But it's the receiving game where you get 8 for Richie James, 8 for Hodgins there, 4 for big chunk yardage from Darius Slayton, and then also Saquon Barkley, 8 for 49. Like, him out of the backfield, him in the passing attack feels like as critical as anything he's going to do in the running game. He needs to be that safety valve. You need to be able to find him out there in the flats, or especially when we've talked about the way you said about spreading out that offense. Hey, if you're going to put out Hodgins and Slayton and Richie James, and I don't know, maybe it's Daniel Bellinger could get moved outside. It could be a Kenny Galladay sighting. We were shocked to see him in the final week of the season. Whatever it is, that space over the middle is going to be there for Saquon to come out of the backfield, maybe get over the middle as well. Do you look at that as being, do you see anyone, I'll say receiver, including Saquon in that, as being critical to this success? Because I think you can go a lot of different ways here.
Yeah. So I think the way that Isaiah Hodgins played last game, I think they're going to pay a lot more attention to him. They might keep Patrick Peterson on him. Slayton has to get involved early, but the tight end has to get involved even more. I think Bellinger, and whether it's Bellinger too, and Cager, if he actually gets a jersey today.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I said this during the week. You can chalk it up to being a worthless game against the Eagles. Lawrence Cager is that athletic tight end that we don't have anywhere else on the roster. He's the Evan Ingram that we moved on from last year. Could be 2 catches, could be 3 targets in the entire, could be 1 target. Might be a critical 30-yard gain you need in this one. Like, I agree with you there. Yeah.
Every time he's played, he's made plays. The Dallas game, so when they when he didn't get a jersey where he was a healthy scratch those last couple of games, I was kind of shocked by it. That's an element in the game that you can add to, and it becomes a mismatch, for the Vikings. Because I understand they have like good interior linebacker play, but it's just, if you spread them out, it's just too much ground that they have to cover. And I think that Daniel Jones is comfortable enough in the scheme now that he's going to find that open guy. And then, like you were saying, as far as Saquon Barkley goes, I see him, if he's in the flat, I see that as an extension to the running game. Actually, if he's getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage, obviously we can't run screens because we have not been successful in screens for years now. But anytime he gets the ball, whether it's directly out of the backfield and things like that, I see that as an extension of the running game because of who he is and how he can make plays once the ball is in his hands. But we got to get the ball to the playmakers. And it's funny, too, because you look at Isaiah Hodgins, and we picked him up off of, not the practice squad, but we picked him up off, we picked him up off the waiver wire, and you see what he can do. And it just, we have to take advantage of these matchups. And I think Daniel Jones in his West Coast offense, this style is to get the ball out quick. And a lot of people don't like it. But as long as you're moving the sticks, I'm happy. That's for me. This season, with what we're doing, I'm happy with moving the sticks. All you need is 10 yards to move the sticks. I don't need the 30 yards.
Only takes 10 for a fresh set, right? 10 yards, that means you start all over again, and you just need to get 10 more and 10 more. And that's been a lot of part of the season has been long, sustained drives where, it's funny, too. I'll just give a quick shout out here to Ronnie Rivera. Of course, you can't wait. Of course, it is MLK weekend, obviously. And we want exactly this. I want hearts. I want fire. I want raging emotion all weekend, all Sunday long here for the New York Football Giants. So we appreciate that support. But it's so funny that during the year, and I'll be, I don't want to go too much down the rabbit hole here, but I was a guy who, when the Giants drafted Daniel Jones, I've always been a fan this way of, once you're drafted, you're a Giant. That's it. I start thinking about how can you help the team? What's your skill set? How can you be a Giant, right? And then the Giants absolutely just drained every ounce of love and joy from my body over the next couple of seasons
Yeah,
even after his rookie year, you get some nice samples. So coming into this year, it's like when we talked about it, I was like, I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore.
that's how I was the same way.
And
Same
he's
way.
checked those boxes, right? Incremental development, cut down on turnovers, do what's asked of you, much better running the ball. Remember, beginning of the year, when he had his first couple of runs, and we know he had the injury to the neck, and that obviously was probably in his
Mhm.
mind. But when you saw him run early in the year, it was, boy, this looks like a guy who is tentative at best about
Yeah,
using his legs. What
yeah,
a dramatic change that has been. But some of the drives they go on, you almost have to go back and remind yourself, yeah, guess what? If you go 6 of 8 on an 80-yard play drive that goes for a touchdown, even if it's Barkley or if it's a short
mhm.
run play, whatever, that's as quality QB play as you're going
It
to see
is.
in the league. And it hasn't been sexy because you don't get the big bomb, right? You don't get the big
Yeah,
flash play off of his
yeah,
arm, but he's done it so consistently. And I think that this is that kind of game. It's like you don't need to be the all-star in this
yeah,
one. Hit that.
yeah. Don't do anything different, please,
Exactly. Yeah. And
please.
because I debate myself, where I'm like, you know what I'd love to see is just a bomb over the top.
Yeah,
Darius Slayton gets over the top of
just
the
want to
defense,
keep them
and
honest.
it'd be great, but you don't need it, right? You don't need it. And it's such a push and pull about staying within yourself and what's gotten you here. There's a reason why you're 9-6-1. There's a reason why
Yeah,
you've been able to win close games. And I think you have to hang your hat on that.
yeah. And I'll say this too. If Darius Slayton gets open, he'll throw it. He'll
Yes.
definitely throw
Yes.
it. So it's just about him being comfortable and how I guess how wide open Slayton is. But if Slayton
Yes.
has a step on somebody, he will throw that ball to Slayton. But just to get to what you were saying, and another thing that I was questioning was his anticipation, and we
Hmm.
saw that receivers had to wait for balls, or he was waiting for people to get wide open, and then the last few games you notice that the ball is on these guys as soon as they
Hmm.
get out of their breaks, especially Richie James. Richie James has been a shining light right now for Daniel Jones. I don't know if he has like a aura or glow around him when he gets open that Daniel just sees him, but they have a connection. So I'm just man with the tools that are in the bag, what we're able to get out of these guys has been fantastic. And I think that he doesn't get enough credit for that. But I don't want to go and be overblown about the progress. But I
Yeah.
have seen some progress. So absolutely, if you tell me this is the same guy from those last 2 years, I'm gonna call you a liar.
I'm gonna say a liar. Jersey says Jones, but no, I think it might be someone different. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's important. And the Richie James piece is funny too to me, man. I know people have talked about this. Like, we never got to the place where it was disappointing when he was fumbling punts.
yeah,
It was one game. Like, it was
it
one
was.
game. Outside of that, and I know, and he's dropped some big passes in big spots. But there's this weird thing that happens over the course of the season, and I actually think him and Hodgins and Slayton, like, these are all guys that are playing some of their best football when it matters most, entering the postseason. But it's
Hmm.
really hard to look at guys that, Isaiah Hodgins, what is he, a fourth wide receiver on a depth chart? Richie James was a return specialist, wasn't even
Yep.
seeing reps as a wide receiver in the league. So it's like you do have to kind of compartmentalize yourself to where your expectations go. Now, though, there's no avoiding the expectations. And it's
Yeah.
specifically because what you said about Daniel Jones and the anticipation.
Yeah.
Because the difference between saying going through your progressions, finding your spots, seeing the route, seeing the open player, and going for it, a lot of that has to do with the trust. And I think
Hmm.
the last month
Yep.
of the season was about the trust is there. Now the anticipation is there. And that's where you can really start to see that offensive success and things open up a bit more. It's probably misleading to look at a bad Vikings team, a terrible Colts team, and then the Philly game and say, well, there's a lot of circumstantial
Yeah.
reasons why the offense looks a little bit better. In a lot of ways, actually, I think it's a product of the steady incremental growth, not just Daniel Jones, it's the entire team.
Yeah. Like you said, these guys, these wide receivers, yes, they've been in the league for a while. Maybe not Hodgins, but Richie James, he's been around.
Veteran.
But yeah, so it's about building that trust, like you said, and becoming comfortable, and knowing that these guys are going to be there to catch the ball. I
Yeah.
mean, to say the least, catch the
Well,
ball,
yeah.
just just catch the ball. But
There you go, though. But that was the perfect one, right? All the confidence, speaking glowing, like, catch the ball. Like, we all agree, though, catch the ball.
that's it, man. Just hold on to it. Just hold on to it. I think that when you mentioned Kenny Galladay.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to go get ahead of myself when I'm talking about Kenny Galladay and what he did in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles when he only had two receptions. Let's be honest. He only had two receptions and he got a 50-50 ball in the end zone. But I do think that opens up. people's eyes. So if he's on the field now, if he's not getting the ball, he can actually be a decoy because people have seen him score a
Yep.
touchdown or get reception. So I think that there's a lot of ways that this game can go offensively. But again, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, those are the key guys. We have to play mistake-free football.
Yeah.
It has to be mistake-free. That last game, we had the fumble by Bellinger, we had the interception by Jones, and then we also had the big third down drop by Richie James. We
Yeah.
cannot allow those plays to happen this game. And I think if we do that, we correct those mistakes. We got a good shot, great shot.
Yeah, I look at it as specifically on Galladay. To your point, it's when you step out on the field, whether he's on the same side as Hodgins or over with Darius Slayton, it's just about, hey, where are we going at the top of our routes, right?
Hmm.
Am I Slayton going over the top? If I'm Kenny Galladay, am I breaking down and running a 15-yard in? Because guess what? If that pulls back a linebacker, that means it's open underneath there for
Yep.
Daniel Bellinger. If I take it deep, it means Isaiah Hodgins or Richie James, who's had so much success going over the middle of the field here on those slant routes, it just opens things up a little bit more. And it may only work for 2 plays. But to your
Yep.
point about play mistake-free football and then hit on those key moments, well,
Hmm.
that may be all it takes, right? Even going back to Lawrence Cager, hey, he gets on the field and you just don't pay attention to him because it's Lawrence Cager. Catch
Yep.
that one big play. Like that is what the playoffs are about. So there's a couple of things that I want to get to the offensive line, the trenches, really,
Yeah.
because I find that fascinating. But when we were about to get on, we were talking just a little bit about last night's game. And I went right over on Twitter when first quarter and I said, good news. Saturday's NFL slate was completely worthless, right? Like, why did we even bother watching these? We could have moved on. And then, as the NFL is one to do, slowly but surely, the 4
Oh man,
interception Trevor Lawrence turns this thing around, wins the. I mean, it's incredible,
it's
right? And
amazing.
that's
It's
exactly what
amazing.
playoff football's about. It immediately put like a lump in my throat as well, though. Now, do I fear Kirk Cousins the way I would fear Trevor Lawrence or a young player or Justin Herbert, some of the more dynamic quarterbacks? No, but also
Yep.
Chargers aren't a bad defense. Like they have playmakers. I think Bosa, lost control of himself a couple of times in that game. Those aren't 2 perfect teams by any stretch, but the idea of sitting here at 5:45 and watching something, evaporate or whatever. It's like
Man,
there's angst, man. There's things happening inside my body that will not settle until later tonight.
you know what? I'll say this about that game yesterday. When you're up 27 points, run the ball a little bit more.
Mhm.
The incompletions, no, they had times that they could just bleed the clock out.
Yeah.
And I don't know I don't even know who the offensive coordinator is. I know Staley calls the defensive plays, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing to allow them to come back like that? And like I said, I mean, it's a whole team thing. The defense has to play better, but offensively, they should not have had enough time on the clock to throw up 31 points.
Yeah.
I mean, well, what was it 26 points?
Yeah,
But
and the big part of the deal is like big plays happen obviously in games, but a lot of that was just predicated on, hey, just keep having nice drives. And to your point,
yeah,
it's like for every lack of a running play from the Chargers, that's 40, 45 seconds. Now
yep,
it's a minute. Now it's 4 minutes. You give up an extra drive. And that ends up being, it turns out that ends up being exactly what the Jaguars needed. One more extra drive to be able to get down the field. That being the case, though, because that's not what's going to happen for the Giants. You brought up, you were talking about the trenches. And I
yeah,
said, I find it so fascinating that all season long, Andrew Thomas, been a
hmm,
revelation. We couldn't be any happier that that's paid off. There's been a
hmm,
lot of rotations on the interior. Glowinski hasn't been perfect, but he's been enough. When
yeah,
Shane Lemieux came back from injury and they immediately plugged him in, we thought, wow, they must really be bullish about, okay, never mind. Made a huge mistake there. And then
yeah,
Evan Neal. It's developmental. He's a rookie, and it's really hard to put a lot on a player like if it was Andrew Thomas's rookie year. Well, thank
yeah.
goodness they weren't going to the playoffs because he wasn't ready for that, right?
Sure wasn't. No.
But now, when we get to this game, all of a sudden you look, and I know they're getting back their center, and they're trying to get themselves healthy there. But it's a both and. They're trying to get themselves healthy on their offensive line, and the New York Football Giants are healthy on the defensive side. It's
Yes,
the
sir.
first time, even in
Hmm.
the last couple of weeks, you didn't get a full dose of Aziz Ojulari. Was still coming back. Leonard Williams. You never saw Dory Jackson even getting into the secondary. It's like, I don't know if I think Giants fans rightfully are getting hyped about this of like, you may see what you have not seen all
Hmm.
season long from this defensive front with Williams, Lawrence, Thibodeau, Ojulari, the linebacking core is always going to be a concern, but it looks a lot different when you get those 4 guys up front. You get Adoree back in, McKinney back in the fold. It really does change the way I think this can go. And it makes me
Yeah.
think about game-wrecking plays, right? It makes
Yep.
me think about Thibodeau and the matchups against Washington. First meeting, almost had it. Sack, not a safety, not a strip fumble. Second time, makes
Got
the
it all.
correction, gets it
Mhm.
done, right? And I just, man, am I aching for those moments.
Yeah, that's where my confidence comes from is the defense and how healthy the defense is now. And when it comes to the Vikings center, I don't care that they're starting centers back.
Yeah.
Dexter Lawrence is a monster this year and hard to deal with. And my key to in this game is Leonard Williams because you know Dexter Lawrence is going to draw a double team,
Mm-hmm.
and then that means Leonard Williams is 1-on-1. And I think with Leonard Williams, he's back healthy. I mean, he's still dealing with the neck a little bit, but his knee issue is cleared up for the most part. I need a game from Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
And if I can
Yeah.
if I can get a game from Leonard Williams, that means the edges are going to do their job too, because he's going to garner some attention. And then of course, Kayvon Thibodeau, like you said, Azeez Ojulari, healthy Azeez Ojulari, on the edge. That's where my confidence comes from. I think they don't have an answer for our front line. Now the caveat to that is we need consistent interior linebacker play. So
who you bringing in? Who you
listen,
signing pregame? Although I know
my
they brought in Davis, so there is already an improvement there. But
this
yeah,
this is what I want. As long as Landon Collins is on the field, I don't care who you put next to him. But I don't want the combination of McFadden, Smith, Davis, Smith, McFadden, Davis. I
mm,
need Landon Collins, and I can partner him up with any one of those guys.
yeah,
But we need that versatility, that side to side, being able to cover ground type of linebacker play today. Because again, Dalvin Cook didn't have a big game against us last time,
mm-hmm,
but he did have a couple big runs. Him and his
yeah.
backup, a couple big runs, first downs. We need Landon Collins in there, and also we need him to help with the tight end, and that's something that's something that we've had issues with too. But any combination of interior linebacker with Landon Collins and whoever else you want to put in there, I would like to see that early because I know Wink likes to go Jalen Smith and Micah McFadden earlier in the games just to see what the offense is doing. And I can see that too. But once they're in the groove, I need Landon Collins in there. I need him to cover that ground.
And I tell you, McFadden in the last couple of weeks, I thought like, hey, that downhill, the
Yeah,
instinct is getting a little bit better for him, and you
yeah,
like that. And
yeah.
again, still a rookie. But ironically, Jalen Smith over the back end of the season, I've been saying, well, that's a bit of a fading star here. Like, things are trending in the wrong direction. And
True.
I think it is the veteran of Landon Collins. And by the way, though, all these guys serve their role, right? Like Jalen
Hmm.
Smith can have his handful of plays that really matter. Micah McFadden can use the speed. It's just, hey, make sure you wrap up those ankles, cut it
Hmm.
down from a 3-yard run play so it isn't a 15-yard run play. And there are a lot of those very marginal moments here for this defense in that regard. And I agree with you. I think experience matters and the
Hmm.
versatility of Landon Collins. You
Yeah,
mentioned, Hawkinson. I don't think it's going to look the same way that it did with the volume that he ended up ultimately getting,
yeah.
but there's going to be those moments. Like there's going to be those plays. And I
And Wink's
think,
going to be Wink.
I mean, well, and by the yeah, and it's so funny too. We talk a lot about him being versatile and adaptable and changing things up. Then you get to the season, goes blitz the most of any team in the NFL. Like I still play to my core, like, and that's
Man,
okay. And I
yeah,
think some of that also was bred out of necessity at certain times because as you
yes.
get injured, it's just about listen, we have to fire our bullets here and hope that we can be disruptive on that side. The last piece I think defensively is when you look at the secondary, how do you want them to approach Justin Jefferson? Because on the one hand, I look at it and say, well, it's going to be Adoree Jackson. You want to lock him up. You want to follow him. That's a tough assignment no matter what.
Yeah,
I don't know how much I want. The Giants have already done such a good job defensively of keeping everything in front of them. They don't give up deep plays. They
yeah,
don't give up the big play. So I kind of trust that. And I don't want to get into the sending the double coverage over to Jefferson's way simply for the fact that there's enough there. Like, hey,
yeah,
by the way, like I know Adam Thielen is a shell of what he once was. Still a guy that caught a lot of balls this year. Easy
yeah,
dude to forget about. Like, I don't want to find the Giants being so laser focused on a player that guess what? He can catch 10 balls for 120 yards in this game and you can still win. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it doesn't need to be that you shut that player down necessarily.
Yeah. When I think about Justin Jefferson, obviously, like you said, it's about containing, not stopping.
Mhm.
My main deal with our Giants defense is if he catches the ball, tackle him. Be
Yeah.
there to tackle him.
Yeah.
Be there to tackle him
It's
because
true.
he got that touchdown because we missed a tackle in that
Mhm.
last game. A couple tackles. I think it was two tackles, and it wasn't even close. So again, you're talking the best wide receiver in the league right now. If you want to argue it that he's not, that's fine. But he's one of the top guys, if not the top guy. And so he's gonna get his plays, but just be there to tackle him if he catches it.
Yeah.
Don't turn a 14-yard play into a 40-yard play because you missed the tackle. And I think if you can do that, that's a part of containing Justin Jefferson. But like you said, Hawkinson, and then they have the wide receiver Osborne and Thielen.
Osborne, yeah.
These,
Yeah.
these guys can play. These guys can still play. Osborne had that game against the Colts when they came back down 33, where he
Mhm.
had 157 yards in the game. You know what I mean? So we were able to shut him down that last game, but it doesn't mean that they're not scheming him up in this
Yeah.
game. So I mean, they have a rookie head coach too, in O'Connell. And when it comes down to it, I just like our coaching better. I think we're going to be able to scheme it up better than they can. And I mean that's saying a lot. I'm biased, of course. I'm a Giants fan, but
Who you rooting
yeah,
for?
man,
Who you
yeah,
rooting
the
for?
exact, yeah, but yeah, man, that's me. Jefferson, just to wrap it up, Jefferson, tackle him once he gets the ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, T.J. Hawkinson scares me. If I'm going to show any concern outside of Justin Jefferson is T.J. Hawkinson. What's the game plan for him? Are you going to cover him over the top with a safety? Are you going to use Landon Collins to cover him? What's going to happen? And like I said, there's a lot of questions that I have, and that builds up the anxiety in me. I just need to see this game. I need
I
to
need to see first drive. I need to see first reps. I need to see who's
exactly.
where. What are we
I need
looking
to
like?
settle
Yeah.
down, man, because I'm too hyper.
And
I
it's
need to
funny.
I need to be able to settle down.
Tyrone Bowman, he mentioned in the chat here, he's saying about X-Men going to be a different than, in the secondary against Jefferson than Love for the playmaker. But like, it's another both and. Yes, having McKinney back there is really going to
Mhm.
matter. And it actually matters for what then Julian Love can go do. This is
Yep.
another guy that when we came into the year in the offseason, again, another player that the Giants managed to ruin my affinity for by having bad coaching and using him improperly and not building him up the right way. Comes in, better coaching, becomes a leader on this team. But he becomes a guy, hey, that he's physical enough to be able to pick up Hawkinson sometimes in that spot. He can go down, maybe pick up a wide receiver in certain coverage situations, but the versatility just opens up a little bit. And by the way, same thing applies for McKinney. You can mix and
Mhm.
match now. And I will find it fascinating to see how they get deployed. It will be fascinating if any of some of these younger guys, like a Cordell Flott, I think that's a
Mhm.
one-off in the Eagles game. We love what we're seeing. Dane Belton, we love what we're seeing, but you didn't see these guys down the stretch. I'll be very curious how some of the veterans in the secondary who have played well,
Yeah.
do they continue to play well? Is there any point when Wink says, hey, I need a spark here? I need something a little bit dynamic in the defense. And a lot of that comes down to athleticism and maybe
Mhm.
something that the Vikings haven't seen before. So there's far more curiosity defensively about how guys get used and how they are effective in this game than on offense, where I feel like I'm so much just about consistency. Check
Yeah.
the boxes, move the chains, right? Like that. It's a bit of a dynamic there. I want explosive game shifting moments defensively, and I
Yeah.
want consistency and reliability offensively. So, the ultimately in this one, I don't know. We do predictions like on our show, which always feels silly in some ways. But like I called for the Giants to win. Andy had called for the Giants to win. I flipped the game number from last time, 27-24 Giants. Again, I think no errors, no mistakes, no turnovers. It's going to be a hard game. Some people seem to think, and this is where I also get anxious, some people have been going a
Go
little
ahead.
too bullish, in my opinion. People have been calling for like 10-point wins for the Giants,
I've
31-20, and maybe the defense will do it, and I'll love it. But
I've heard
God, is
even
that
worse.
hard for me to get to.
I've heard even worse. Even this morning, I heard somebody say 31-10, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
pump
baby.
your brakes, slow down. So I mean, like I said, and it's hard because on game day I become irrational and
Yeah.
illogical in my thinking because I'm totally in game mode. So I'm like, yeah, we can win by 100 points. That's just me on game day. Built, going through the week, I'm logical. I'm thinking about things right. But game day is a whole different animal when it comes to me. So yeah, I did have a prediction. And I put it out. I think we win by 3 this time. I think we flip it. Not flip the score like you said, but I think 24-21 type deal.
Mm-hmm.
For us, that's a good game for us. And when we were able to hold people in that range, in that 20 range, whether it's right under 20 or right above 20, we're making the things happen. And that's my prediction, man. 24-21 Giants. I would love for it to be 41-0, going
Yeah.
back going back to
Let's throw it back.
2000. So but we'll see what happens, man, because that was a high-powered offense, and I hate to be nostalgic, but man, I just look at this season of how things are coming along and how the team is waking up at the right time,
Yeah.
getting healthy at the right time. The defense is performing. Daniel Jones is getting comfortable, and I'm like,
Mhm.
you know what? If we can win this game, the sky's the limit for me. Sky's
Yeah.
the limit for me. Yeah,
And you know what? And
especially if
it's so
the
funny
defense gets
too.
rolling.
All the trepidation, the anxiety, whichever you should have as a fan in any game. I don't care if you're considered to be the favorites or otherwise. It's NFL football. You don't know what can happen.
Yeah,
But go out and win this game.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, it's the NFC, man. The NFC playoff game. This is not, which by the way, when you look over the AFC, I thought last night watching Justin Herbert playing Trevor Lawrence, I go, okay, there's those two. Now put in Josh Allen. Now put in
Mhm.
Burrow. Now put in Mahomes. And I was like, I mean, now we know
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts is on the up and come, right? And we like Daniel
yeah,
Jones, but I don't know. The five of the best living in the AFC for the next
yeah.
decade plus, probably battling it
Gauntlet.
out in a lot of these scenarios. So
It's going to be a
the
gauntlet for years in the
yeah,
AFC in the playoffs. And then you look at you look at the NFC, and you're trying to find the opposite, or not the opposite. You're trying to find those same type of guys in the NFC, and you're like, well, Brady's out on his way out. Rodgers is probably on his way out, and then
mhm.
you're looking at the next up and comers. You're like, well, who's there?
And by the way,
You know
like,
who
let's be
yeah.
filthy about it. You know what I mean? Dak Prescott,
Well, the
let's
way
see.
Dak Prescott is playing right now, you'd be lucky if you make it out of Tampa Bay.
Well, that's exactly like it's just
Yeah,
man, and it's the funny thing about the NFL, dude. Like 2 seasons over 3 seasons, right over a handful of years, all of a sudden, like things change really quickly.
I remember being a
Narratives
little
change
bit
quickly.
of jealous of Philadelphia when Carson Wentz had that almost MVP season. I was like,
Right,
everybody
right.
else, Dak was there. They had Carson. I'm like, when are we going to get our quarterback? Because Eli was on his way out. I'm like,
Yep.
man, what's going to happen? We need our quarterback. But like I said, Daniel Jones has a chance in this playoff to either solidify himself, because right now the rumors are saying he's coming back anyway,
Mhm.
and a lot of the division is in the fan base. But if he performs in this playoff, okay, let's say we beat Minnesota and we go to Philadelphia, obviously, because that's the way it's adding up now. Even if you do not beat Philadelphia, for him to have a game in Philadelphia, to
Yeah.
make it a game in Philadelphia, I think it goes a long way for him as far as future.
Yeah.
But again, I don't even want to look past this week right now. I want the rematch with the Philadelphia Eagles so bad, man. No, I hate Philadelphia with all my heart.
He's not
I,
looking past it, but he's
it's not.
thinking about it
I'm just
though. You can see it. It's
remember Home Improvement, the
yes.
neighbor in the backyard, how he's looking over the fence.
Just a little
That's
just
just
peeking
a little
over.
peek, just a little peek.
Just seeing what it looks like. Just
Just
seeing.
a howdy, neighbor. Howdy,
Little
what you doing over there?
I love that. Yeah, that being the case, we know 4:30 today. It's all going to kick off. We're going to be having a great one. Obviously, at Big Dash Knows on Twitter. Same handle
Thank
over
you
on
very much.
YouTube as well for the channel.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
You get them over there, dude. Like we connected, and this is I'm gonna peel back the curtain of the show. We had
Mhm.
connected for one, and I technologically boondoggled the entire operation, so it never saw the light of day. And it was a great first conversation. But
Yeah.
I was doing a dry run. That we called that the preseason, so that we could get on together. I think I would expect you'll see us together again with Andy as well, especially in this offseason,
Absolutely,
talking
man.
about the Daniel Jones stuff, right? Reviewing this year, no matter what happens in these playoffs. There's going to be
Yeah.
a lot of great conversations. There's a lot of great Giants content creators out there. And Big
Absolutely.
Dash is one of those guys for sure. So, guys, enjoy it. It's noon on the East Coast. Big Dash communicates all the way across the country. Get set up here. We got afternoon slates coming up. You don't have to
Yeah.
care about the Bills and the Dolphins. You can let that thing happen as it's going to. Start to
Man.
settle in though, man. Start to find your groove here on a Sunday because it's going to be good in just like 4.5 hours, dude. It might as well be 7 seconds because
Man,
it's going to
I
come
can't.
on to me like that, and I'm going to be locked in, freaking out, sweating on my sofa.
I can't even sit still, man. I'm my legs shaking now, man. I can't wait for this game.
It's gonna be good, dude. Check out Big Dash Knows on all the
Thank you,
social
man.
platforms, man. We'll be connecting again, as I said. Let's go, Big Blue friends. This is it. It's what we've been waiting for. Thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.